Welcome to the Start, Build, Grow Show. My goodness, today we have an incredibly special guest. You are not going to want to miss this. She's a spellbinding storyteller, battle-tested tech executive, expert presenter, world-class athlete, best-selling author, and self-proclaimed research geek. You're going to want to stay tuned for this one. It's going to be an awesome conversation. All right, everybody. I want to welcome in Nina Sossamon-Pogue. Thank you so much for joining me. I was just looking at the profile. This is going to be such a cool conversation. So grateful to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thanks, Randy. I'm excited to be here and see where this takes us.
Love it. So in the beginning of these episodes, my episode is about, our show is really about entrepreneurship and our audience is the blue collar world. A lot of us are contractors and business owners in the trade space, and there's a lot of roofing contractors that listen and follow, and I am super passionate about growing as leaders, and I believe wholeheartedly that if we can grow as a leader in anything we're doing, especially in our space, which is arguably pretty archaic in a lot of senses, and we're kind of like oh, you're a contractor, cool, you're doing something else, but I believe passionately about contractors, and I think if we grow as leaders, I've seen manifestation of some amazing things happen. So, but generally with the show, we don't start with the story. So, give us your background and kind of how you kind of got up to where you are now.
Well, it's a long story, so sit back and get comfortable.
Let's go.
Yeah, so I started early in life. I'm a Navy brat. Grew up, middle American Navy brat, traveling all over, youngest of 4 kids. And I was put into gymnastics because I was hyper and do something with Nina because she's a lot. And so I ended up doing gymnastics, and I was really good at it. And through the years, moved away from home when I was 13 and moved into an Olympic training center. And then I made the US team and I traveled all over the world, Japan, Hungary, Germany. And that was back in the day. That's in the 80s for some of your listeners, like Mary Lou Retton, Bart Connor, that crowd. So you can kind of get my age in here. So back in the 80s. And then 84 came along, and I had a bad season. I'd grown a little bit. I bombed a qualifying meet and I didn't make the Olympics. So that was my first big I call it, like, this was not part of the plan. And so I had to, was embarrassed to go back to my high school. Felt like I'd let everybody down, my friends, my, coaches, my parents, my family. So I went through a big transition phase there of who am I now. And I needed a scholarship to go to college. So I stuck with it, and I ended up going and playing, doing gymnastics at LSU, one of the top, D1 athlete, one of the top schools in the nation in gymnastics. We just won the national championship. So
nice.
Still, they're still one of the top.
Yeah. I'm a big NFL fan, so I follow a lot of the, a lot of the college sports, college football as well. So
yeah, well, LSU's got some good guys in the NFL right now. Yeah, you're seeing, yeah. Yeah.
But I had Jamar Chase on my fantasy team. So,
nice.
LSU guy.
Yeah. You got to love, we got some strong guys out there. But anyway, so I go and I'm, an athlete at LSU and back in my game and around people who were like me, like super committed, live in their sport, kind of their whole world. And then I blew out my knee my freshman year. And I had to kind of figure out who I was without gymnastics. And it was in a competition in front of everybody. And I went from, top of the world again to, wait, who am I without this? And, back then it was like your bumper sticker on your car, your sweatshirt and stuff. Nowadays it's everybody's, Instagram and TikTok and stuff. Like, these kids really identify with their sports. So I talk about that a lot, like how redefining who you are as a human. But that was the next big this wasn't part of the plan. And through a series of things, which we can talk about, I ended up in journalism. First time I stepped in a newsroom, I loved it. And I became a journalist and a reporter, sports reporter, of course, first, because that's what you do when you're an athlete. And then I got into general assignments and then sold out and became a news anchor. I wanted to be like the next Christiane Amanpour and like go around the world. And then I realized how that takes, like, they pay you nothing. So I'm like, oh, I can just like have great hair and go do that and be a news anchor. So I became a journalist in that way for many years. And then during that time, I one year I was voted Charleston. I'm in Charleston, South Carolina. I was voted Charleston's favorite news anchor 7 years in a row. And then one day I walked in and the GM called me into his office the day after the award came out in the paper and said, "Hey, we're releasing you, per your contract, we're releasing you without cause." So I was let go in budget cuts. They
Wow.
went younger and blonder. And next thing I know, I was, figuring out who I was without that. I remember like sitting in my Jeep in the parking lot going, now what do I do? Like with my box of stuff, like they do when they let you go and
Like in the movies,
yeah.
you like the slow stroll by
Yes.
everybody, like the awkward I'm out of here
So
thing.
the girl from HR carrying your stuff and walking you out and taking your key card, the whole thing. So that happened, and I've been through divorce and those things. Oh, I sometimes say my life became a country song in my 30s. I lost my job, my marriage fell apart, and then my dog died. Like I had a
Yep,
black lab
yep.
that was my person.
Truck
Um,
broke down.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. So my 30s, I had some real low moments too. And I share all this because people see me as, this elite athlete, this corporate executive, this Emmy award winning news anchor. But I had a lot of low moments. And
Mm,
all of these things led me to start speaking about how you build yourself back up after the low moments, because that was in my 30s. And then I also had I was I went from reporting the news to being in the news, and this tragic accident that happened. And then I did news while longer. I got into tech. I had huge success in the tech space. I jumped into a friend's startup. So I've had some real low lows and some real high highs, and that's my backstory. That's how I ended up on this journey and like talking to you today. This was not part of the plan either. Like sitting here and talking to you today, I'm glad I'm here. But
yeah.
just life, like it does to all of us, it starts lifing on us, and it kind of takes you in a new direction.
I love it, and I can, not a world class athlete. I play pickleball pretty competitively, but but there's so many similarities, and my journey is been, all, and I've shared many times on the show and wrote a book and those sort of things as well. And in the entrepreneurial world, right? It got started early and saw some success early. Then all of a sudden the market completely dropped out. I'm a
Right.
contractor. And at one point I was trying to build a construction company in a county that had the highest foreclosure rate in the country.
Oh, geez.
So that didn't work out so well. I went bankrupt within the first 3 years of my business, lost everything, and completely had to reset. So, I mean, whether it's sports or different careers, I feel like so many of us, and I share that story a lot as well, because it doesn't matter. And someone such as yourself, you're probably one of the most famous people that's even been on the show. But people can listen to this and they see these stories or hear these stories, they're like, wow, I can still relate. You
Yeah.
see the accolades, right? And you see all and I get on stages and I'm traveling and speaking at conferences and these things. And it's easy to be like, oh, well, how'd you get there? I'm like, no, I'm just another blue collar guy that's just
Yeah.
just made a couple more mistakes than you have and learned a little bit more. And that's about it. It's I just paid more dumb tax.
I call it your reverse resume, and everybody has one. I always say nobody
Absolutely.
nobody gets a pass. Like nobody gets an easy life and has everything handed to them. Different people come in at different levels, and but no matter who you are, you have stuff you go through. And so I always have people take a piece of paper and turn it sideways and draw a line across it and then put in that line like 10 dots, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, all the way to if you live to be 100. So those are the years of your life. And yes, I am pretending I live to be 100 and I need to drink less wine and take better care of myself. But let's pretend
Don't
that
we
we get
all,
there.
right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But let's pretend we get there. So we have this line. And then I always say, and now above the line, in those years, kind of where it fits in, put your accolades, the stuff that's on your LinkedIn profile or your resume or stuff you're proud of. You started a business, you finished up school, you got married, you bought a house, whatever. That stuff goes above the line. And then down below the line, put all the stuff that you went through, even if it was just bullied in high school or had a bad breakup or lost a parent or, a bad car accident. Like all the stuff that you get through goes on underneath that line about on the same dates. And then you can see this, you can kind of connect the dots and it goes up and down and up and down.
Yep.
Um, because nobody gets a pass and has nothing below the line. And that's your resume up top and your reverse resume down below. And I will argue that reverse resume is what makes you who you are, all the stuff you've been through, you know.
Amen.
And
Yeah.
then all those ups and downs. I always say when I have it do it with a workshop or something, I'm like, and you see how it kind of looks like an echocardiogram? Like you don't want to be flatline. That would be boring. So this is just what life is. It's going to keep doing this to
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it's those challenging moments that define us, right?
Right.
It's how we learn from those. And as a business coach, right, I work with a number of different business owners, entrepreneurs, and
Mhm.
and and we talk about that all the time as far as like especially now we could shift gears into leadership, right? I mean, I'm trying to coach and teach leadership. And one of the big mistakes I think a lot of leaders make is they just try to solve everyone's problems, that you become, what's that, the book about the monkey, right? It's like, give me all your monkeys and I'm the leader that just gives me all the problems. And the next thing you know, you're just completely bogged down, but what we have to do is, or what I'll ask somebody is, what are some of the most defining moments in your career that you learned the most? And then correlate that with the mistake you made.
Right.
It's like, oh, wait a minute. Every time I've learned the most, it was usually following a big mistake. So why do we work so hard to prevent the people we're trying to build up from making mistakes?
Mm-hmm.
Let them. It's okay, because they're going to learn faster. Get out of the way. And it's amazing what happens when you start to get the heck out of the way, and then your team starts to build up. And next thing you know, you're hanging out on a Friday with a podcast while you have a whole bunch of people working for you. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah, and you only learn from what you don't get right, and I think I can take it back to being an athlete. Think about any sport you played as a kid. Like, you swing and swing and swing, and they tell you what you did wrong, and then you fix it and you get it right. And gymnastics,
Yeah.
you fall off the beam or you fall off, and they tell you what you did wrong until you get it right. Like, you have to be coachable in life. Like, you have to keep, and the more, and every time you get it right, no one tells you something new to do. So you're not learning anything in the moment till you get it right. Does that make sense? So you're just learning from those tough moments. I would say I used to hire people a lot when I was in tech. I had a couple hundred people that reported through to me. And I always say I would hire someone who had been through a lot, or had been an athlete, who was coachable. And
Yes.
they weren't going to crumble, because I had to let them screw up some, and I had to be able to redirect and tell them what they did wrong so they could get better. But yeah, so when you're hiring a crew or a team, like, you got to let them get it wrong, try and get it wrong, so you can keep telling them how to do it better, so they can up their game.
Absolutely. And I think it's something to lean in there, because a lot of us, we try to hire, maybe it's instinctual, or what the media has told us is like, well, hire the person with the best resume, hire the person that has all the things and the thing. Like, I'm looking for more. I'm looking for the character of a person. I'm going to ask questions, or challenge you to ask questions of somebody you're going to hire. Ask them, like, what their biggest challenge that they got through. What are they most proud of in life? What are, and the person that says, oh, I was never a runner and I did the work to run a marathon. Do you want that person on your team, or do you want somebody that can't even answer that question?
Right.
The person that won a high school football championship because they were on a team and they knew what it took to do that. Like, that's the athletes that have overcome injuries and overcome things. That's the person, regardless of their experience.
Yeah.
Hire
Or
character, teach skills. I could teach them how to do the thing, but I can't teach the person to wake up in the morning, look in the mirror and say, I'm going to go get it today.
Right. And to the best I can. And it's not all going to go right. And I'm going to be okay. I'm going to keep getting better. Like, you got to hire that person, the gritty person who's knows they know that there's stuff out there they don't know.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that wants to keep getting better. Like, really has it in them to be really good at whatever they do. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, tenacity, right? That's what I'm looking for as the top priority with anyone I'm looking to hire, bring onto my team or to work with, is, somebody that just has the grit to just set and achieve goals and work through the challenges to get there,
And when you talk about the leadership piece, the hiring's part of it, but also, as a leader, you have to know when to ask for help. You can't do it all yourself. You got to bring in good people. The people who have the most success, I find, in leadership are people who are comfortable not being the smartest one in the room. Like, not they're comfortable bringing in people smarter or better at things than them, and also the ones who are willing to ask for help. Asking for help is hard. It takes a lot. It's putting your ego aside. Asking for help is not an easy thing to do, but if good leaders do it, and athletes have coaches, entrepreneurs have mentors, people listen to your podcast to keep learning. Like, it's those people who are going to have the most success and be the leaders out there.
Absolutely. And humility, right? That's right alongside of it. And vulnerability.
Yeah.
I think you just ask yourself, when you were following other leaders, do you want to follow a leader that has all the answers, that knows everything, and half the time they're just BSing, right? Or do you want to follow a leader that's going to admit when they're wrong, that's going to be vulnerable, it's just going to, make mistakes, own those mistakes and ask you for help, right? And it creates this, this bond that you can't get elsewhere, that you can't really get by checking a box on a spreadsheet,
Right. The leader's setting the vision and is out there, but doesn't have to have all the answers. Like if they already have the answers, somebody would have already done it. Then they're not a leader. Then they're a follower. Like you got to have the vision and think about it, but you don't have all the answers. The leader's the one taking the risk to try the new thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. So you do, and I'll shift gears a little bit. So nowadays, I mean, you're on stages all over, you're working with big multinational companies. How did that end up? I mean, we kind of cut the story off of, you did the tech thing, which actually I'm kind of a little more interested in that. That's always fun, like to build a tech company. So 2 questions. Share a little bit more about that journey of building something like that, maybe some of the challenges and the triumphs that you've had there, and then walk us into where you are now with your journey.
Yeah, so I went from TV to tech, which is a big jump, but it was back when Google bought YouTube in 2006, 2007, right? The switch of that year. Google bought YouTube, and I had a friend who had a tech startup in the SaaS space, software as a service, which is cloud-based software.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of early on in that. And so he had this software company, and he's like, I need someone who can understand video and take really complex things and break them down and make them really simple. And he'd watched me on TV for years, and we'd sat on a few charity boards together. And so he made me an offer I couldn't refuse. And, I always joke, I was turning 40 and they were going HD, and I wanted them to remember this all young and cute. I'm in out. So I took this opportunity and I jumped in with this friend's startup. And, being a journalist, I learned fast. I asked a lot of questions. I was not afraid not to, I never thought I was the smartest person in the room. And so I had some real success there in the tech space. And I ended up here in this journey. I think that's where we were going with this. I ended up here in this journey because I did that for about 12 years. And I became this person that people came to whenever they were struggling. And I didn't work in HR. I was communications, marketing, media. Those were my areas that I ran. And I was just finding myself people would book a sync on my calendar,
Mm-hmm.
and I would end up in a room with somebody going, okay, you don't work with me. Like, how do I know you? And they'd say, I just heard you were really good at getting people through tough times. So they would pull me in and I would help them through that. And so I knew I was helping in a meaningful way there. And I'm not HR and I'm not a clinically trained therapist, any of those things, but I'd gone through enough things myself and read enough and learned enough that I was putting it out there. So I decided to leave my corporate job and write my book and go down this. And your folks will love this. By the end of my time in corporate, we'd had new leadership changes, and the new CEO, who I was the old regime, he had to find other places to put some of the leadership. At one point, I was running facilities. So I zero background in facilities. So I'm running facilities. I'm like on the roof with the HVAC guys, and like we had a campus with 3 huge buildings, 4 stories each. So I'm learning all this stuff about facilities, standing up a new office in Oklahoma, and Tulsa, and having to outfit it, and then meeting with the electrical guys, and like I knew none of that, but it's fun. I spoke at a couple of construction conferences this year, and it was really fun to sit and do prep work with these, really people who were so good in this industry for a long time.
Yeah.
One was the Metal Builder Contracting Association, and the other one was just contractors throughout the Carolinas. But that mindset of I didn't know what I didn't know. So anyway, I was in that space, but I'd really gotten way out of my wheelhouse doing that type of stuff. And I went, this is not where I'm meant to be. I've been doing a lot of things. So I stepped out, wrote my book, and ended up the journey where I am right now. And my book is called This Is Not the End: Strategies to Get You Through the Worst Chapters of Your Life. And it really focuses on my big fails. Like I just shared my big struggles, some of them that I shared with you as we started. But it fits into anybody. It's in my framework that I put together, fits in with anybody who is just struggling. And that's why I'm speaking. I speak at a lot of contractor conferences in the last year or so, because it's a tough industry to be in.
It is.
Like it is, and it's constantly changing, and you have so much where you're relying on other people and supply chain stuff, and trying to get good workers and working as a team. So that became my research, and the research took me into, I didn't know exactly what I was, putting together for folks, but it's my own mashup of my life experience, obviously, and then research into other companies like Lego and like who almost went under and then came back. Plus, everybody likes Lego, and I get to
Yeah.
stand on the stage and go, "Everybody's awesome," which is just fun. Um, but
I don't know how many. I got Lego. Let's check this out right there.
oh, do you?
This was my Christmas present. I haven't
Oh
opened
my
it yet, but it
gosh!
was like sitting right there. Like I'm in my 40s and I still love playing with Lego. Come on,
Yes, you
it's
get.
fun.
My son's in the Air Force, and I send him them just to kind of give him some to use his brain elsewhere. He's in the Air Force, at Oklahoma City, actually, at Tinker Air Force Base, and he's a big Lego guy. And I wouldn't still can't take apart any of the ones. I have the Millennium Falcon like still put together in the storage unit somewhere. So anyway, Lego is a company that I studied because they almost went under so many times, and they came back and had huge success. Good partnerships. How did they do that? And the commonalities is a mix of that research, but it's stoicism, cognitive behavior therapy, some behavioral science, neuroscience, and how our brains work, and it's my own mashup of all of that, and it has helped people move forward. And so I launched my entrepreneur, or launched my own company, and did that when I left tech because I'm like, I want that to be what I'm doing. And so I had to
Love
create
it.
like, what does that business look like? And it's
Yeah.
speaking, online courses, and it's, I do some consulting for, companies who are going through transition or going for an S round of funding or mergers and acquisitions and stuff.
Yep. And that's, I mean, it's interesting that you bring that up because the roofing space, well, the trade space in general, I mean, from a lot of in-home services, the HVAC, and now the big hot button. And I've had a number of different, private equity CEOs and different people on the show because in our industry, the roofing industry, somehow a few years ago, someone in the private equity space like caught wind that roofing is an archaic industry, but there's money to be made. There's like some roll-ups, and so there's a big movement in our industry with that. There's a lot of companies coming in, a lot of roll-ups, a lot of consolidation happening, and it can be overwhelming. And I've had a number of conversations and a number of people on the show that are involved in that world as well. So, maybe you can even speak to that side, like how the corporate world is coming into the blue collar world and what that may look like in the future.
I haven't really thought about it. That's an interesting mashup there. But I think work is work. And I think, corporate world, blue collar world, we're all just, trying to make a buck, and
Yeah.
also trying to be really good at whatever we do. So I don't see them as really different. That's just another merger and acquisition. It's just people coming together. They're good at their stuff doing a thing, and you're good at your stuff doing a thing. And I'm big into partnerships. I believe that we're all better when we, like a high tide raises all ships. Like
Yeah.
once you pull in the right people, that can help. Now that said, pull in the right people, and not everybody is who you want to, jump into bed with. You want to be careful who,
Absolutely.
because there are people out there who are just in it for themselves, and that's not going to be success for both of you. It's got to be something where you're going to have success for yourself, and build success for someone else. I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think it's us and them. I think it's just everybody's just out there doing what they do well, trying to do what they do well and
Yeah.
get better at it. And if these two entities can come together and get better at it together, then maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
They can help you
And
scale. They can help you look at finances differently, scale differently. I don't know.
yeah, and then you can take your life's work and have some meaning from it as well, in a sense of you find the right partnership, you find the right exit strategy. Now you're taking care of your family for
Right.
life, instead of just strapping on the tool belt every day and going and working 48 hours a day. That sort
Right.
of mentality that many of us have in this business, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I did that. I worked in corporate. There's crazy long hours too. Don't get me wrong. I thought when I went from TV to tech, I thought, oh, I want to get out of television so I can like be home for my kids and like work 9 to 5. That's not a thing. Like the hours were worse. I felt like once I jumped into that world because there's so much I didn't know, and I was always on a plane, like flying to New York, flying to wherever.
yeah,
So it was a very different grind. But I did that grind for a long time. I think we live in seasons of our lives. And like you said, I stayed in that very difficult space, which was corporate. Um, and then it did give me the opportunity to provide for my family, let my kids I have 3 adulting kids who all could go to whatever colleges they wanted to because I had put in the work and, I was the breadwinner and did my stuff. But it was a season of my life. And so, like you said, so you can get to that next season where you can have a Friday where you're sitting here chatting with me, and I'm headed into a weekend, and I live, a few minutes from the beach. I will be taking a walk on the beach and drinking a glass of wine and watching the sunset tonight. Like, you get to that season where you're not
Yep.
living in the grind, but you have to do the grind to get to that.
I agree. Yeah.
And you have to work with other people. If you don't ever let yourself work with other people, you live in the grind forever. Yeah.
Yeah. A mentor of mine once said something about, the key to success is learning how to work with people you hate.
I
Like,
don't
you can
even want to
learn
get
how to
into
work
that.
with anybody, right? If you can learn how to figure out how to work with anybody, even if you don't get along with them, you learn something special and you can achieve some significant success.
Oh my gosh, I have never heard that before, but when you said it, several people popped into my head. Let me tell you.
And it's and then really, I think the more he's an incredible mentor of mine, and there's always underlying, like, you got to lean into the things he says because there's a purpose way deep down as to why, and really it's about like getting outside of yourself and being able to, understand someone else and
Right.
learning that skill set. I believe, and I'm trying to learn that, like, to be able to
Hmm.
figure out all the different types of people, different types of personalities, but that's what makes life. That's what makes us successful. That's what makes us able to thrive, is being able to not just stay in our lane and surround ourselves with just the people we like to be around and the people we connect with. But it's no, like, branch out. You can learn so much, which is, I love this because this is a culmination of, I've been doing the show for 4 or 5 years,
Hmm.
and it was like roofing. And now I'm like, you know what? Let's start expanding that. And my admin's like reaching out to these different verticals. I'm like, how did we even connect? Like, how did this even happen? And it's like, now we're dealing with like PRs and firms and trying to help with, and I'm like, let's do that, because there's
Yeah.
so much I can learn. There's so much that people in my industry can learn from branching out and getting outside of the box and outside of, the traditional faces that we've all seen 3,800 times in our industry, so
Right.
thank
You
you
learn.
for that.
Well, I'm
You're a
happy to be
catalyst in
here.
that and kind of diversifying the show. It's great.
Great. Well, and it's you learn empathy for other people. Like, other people are just doing their job too. Like, we're all, there's no, I don't think of it as I can't even say the word. Anyway, you know what I mean? Higher
Yeah,
or lower than each.
hierarchy or something.
Yeah, good.
Hierarchy, right? There you go.
Hierarchy. Yeah,
Hierarchy.
hierarchical. Okay. Or, oh, look, I got a little thing. Um, so whatever that is, but I don't look at it as who's above or below each other. Everybody's just out there doing what they are doing, and if you can learn to have empathy for other people's struggle, that's
Yes.
really good. And there's lots of really great books on emotional intelligence. That's what it is. It's emotional intelligence, your ability to understand your own emotions and other people's emotions too. So, I don't know if you've talked about it on here before, but Blinkist, do you guys blink? Do you use that app? Okay.
I've heard the name, but I'm intrigued.
Okay, here you go. Okay, I'm going to change your world right here, listeners.
Let's do it.
Um, there's an app called Blinkist, and I love to read. Don't get me wrong, but I really, some of these like self help books and the heavy stuff on emotional intelligence, or why zebras don't get ulcers, the whole thing on behavioral science around what we're doing to our body with stress. You can blink any book in 15 minutes. And it's
Mm,
like Cliff Notes audio sort of thing, but they talk you through it and the key concepts. And I have found I can learn a lot more from that. And then if I love a book, I can go back and do the full audio book, like when I'm working out or something. But blinking things on emotional intelligence, and kind of getting your brain to think a little differently about empathy, emotional intelligence. It's part of not just leadership and working with the other people on your site or wherever you're working, but being a leader, and being helps you with your family, your friends, and it's something we're not taught. It's crazy that we're not taught it.
wow. Yeah. It's funny because I find myself, I'm a big reader or listener. I'm always like, I'll like listen to the book, if I like it, and I'll buy it and I'll read
Yeah.
it. But that process just takes so long. And
Hmm.
I've got a number of books in my Audible that I'll listen to like a few chapters, like, and I'm like, oh, okay, I like the book. And I'm like, someone told me about some other book. And so I try that book. I'm like, no, this one's better. So then I lean into that one, and I have all these unfinished, books in there because they aren't the highest priority at the time. So that's a great solution
Yeah.
for that.
And I always say I'm a victim of the last book I read. My oldest son's the same way too. I'm like, that was the best thing. I'm going to totally do this. And then the next thing
Yep.
comes, I'm like, no, this is the best thing. I'm going to
Yeah.
like now. And I do it in my life too, like different workouts. I'm going to do HIIT training. I'm going to do marathons. No, I'm going to do triathlons. Like,
Yeah.
I am a little bit of a victim of the last thing that I got excited about,
Yeah.
but, so I will put down a book. I'll start it
Yeah.
and put it down like you will. But I do think I'm a big fan of just buy the book anyway. You just get what you need from it and then put it
Yep.
aside. Drop the guilt. So you never finished it, whatever. you know.
Yeah. So there's always something, right? You're always going to
Right.
get something from it,
You
you
get
know?
something from it. I have
Yeah.
lots of books I haven't finished, and then I have other ones that I've read repeatedly, you know.
Yep. Yeah, that's where it's like I listen to the book, maybe listen to fast, and I really like it. Okay, grab it and then highlight it and take time to go through. And I got my little, these are sweet. These are remarkable deals right here. You just take
Yeah.
your notes. I got my little book notebook in there where I take notes on books if I actually really like.
Wait,
But at the end of the
wait. You
day,
said something. Are you one of those people that listens to them on fast, like it's sped up?
it depends. Sometimes I'll try to go like 1.25. I can't do 1.5. It's like that's a little
Yeah.
too fast for me. Like my brain doesn't
Uh-huh.
work that fast. But sometimes, like if I'll go for a walk or I'm driving, I'll just like fast forward a little bit and then okay, that was good. Let's go back to that,
Interesting.
or I'll buy the book. So
Yeah, yeah.
my sisters that can listen like real fast. I'm like, I don't know
Oh,
how you do it,
my
but
one of my sons is like
we
he'll
work
speed through
together.
them. I can't do it. My brain doesn't work that fast. I have to slow it down a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Like to normal. Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously, I mean, I could just already we could probably just sit here and chat all day long, right? But let's try to kind of finish this thing with, you mentioned a number of different things, and now you've become a world renowned sought after speaker and coach on a lot of the overcoming challenges and obstacles. I'm just going to freeform. What are some maybe like 2 or 3 of the main points that you are passionate about that really get you going and keep you focused on doing what you do each day?
Yeah, I think people get stuck in really tough places and they let that be their life. And so a lot of what I work on, I say helping hardworking humans thrive through tough times because we're all out there working hard. My audience is not the get off the couch, you're already off the couch, people. You're already working, you're listening. So I like people who are working hard. And I think there's 2 things with that. Don't get stuck in a bad chapter. I always say a bad day doesn't make a bad week. A bad few weeks doesn't make a bad year. Even a bad few years doesn't make a bad life. So back to that timeline thinking, I always say, put that timeline there, put a dot on where you are right now in this tough moment if you're in a tough spot. And then look at all everything you've done has brought you up to that dot on your timeline, whatever age you're at. If you're in your 40s, like put it right there. And then look at all that blank space ahead. And it's yours to do whatever you want with. Like if you don't like what's going on, you got to make some changes and do something different. But that bigger perspective of it's okay to not be okay. We're going to struggle. It's just not okay to stay that way. And so a lot of my framework is how do you get you back up over that line? It's okay to not be okay. It's just not okay to stay that way. And it's up to you to do something, to make the changes, to move it forward. And that's a lot of my framework. So the timeline piece is really key. And then another piece that's the second part of that is humans. And we've talked about it a little bit. Don't go it alone. People who have big success don't go it alone. People who struggle and get out of it don't just survive it, but like thrive on the other side. They don't go it alone either. They got to pull in people. You gotta let some people in because when stuff happens, you feel like you're all alone in it. Like no one's gone through this specific thing, and they haven't because they're not you. But someone's been through something similar, or someone sees it from another angle, or someone can just be there to hold your hand through it. Whatever. So those 2 things: it's okay to not be okay, and don't go it alone. Okay to not be okay, but don't stay that way. And don't go it alone. Pull in some other humans if you're struggling. Yeah.
That. And I would think, and we're definitely kindred in a lot of that. I mean, in the coaching consulting world, and there's a lot of entrepreneurs on here, a lot of entrepreneurs listening to this, and entrepreneurship can be one of the most loneliest, depressing, like the substance abuse, like stuff in the entrepreneurial world that we don't realize. Like, oh, I'm going to go be an entrepreneur, and you have this passion and you do all these things, and next thing you know, it's lonely up there. It can be very lonely. You're expected to have all the answers, and when things don't go well, like you're the one wearing it. You're the one up all night. Like your families get like the brunt of it. What's left, right? It's a really high divorce rate in entrepreneurship. There's a really high, substance abuse rate in entrepreneurship, and a really high depression rate in entrepreneurship. And I think a lot of our listeners, entrepreneurs, are listening, trying to build their businesses. And I think there's some incredible takeaways there. Is you're not alone.
Yeah.
Like listening to this show, like leaning into people around you, and even if they are your staff, like being more vulnerable and allowing others to come in, I think it's incredibly valuable there.
Yeah. It does feel really lonely. Even when I loved having a team and being a big industry and being part of a big machine. I was just a cog in a big machine, but I liked that. I knew my part. I knew what I was doing. When I stepped out to do it myself, I did all that. I felt really alone. I felt really lost. I didn't have anybody to help build me up on my days where I just felt like crap. Like I didn't feel like doing it today. Like there's nobody there to go, come on, we got a meeting. Let's go do a thing. Or, hey, get on the plane. Have here, I got you a coffee. We got this thing. When it's just you, there's nobody to build you up. Granted, there's nobody to tear you down, which is one of the reasons a lot of us leave corporate because we felt like we were being torn down.
Sure.
But once you step in and do it yourself, there's nobody to build you up, and you have to build that team yourself. And going alone was hard for me. It was a weird. I'd always been around a lot of people and managed a lot of people and mentored a lot of people, and then all of a sudden I was just in this isolated space. And then the pandemic hit because I, of course, started a speaking business, corporate speaking in 2020. Brilliant.
Perfect timing. Absolutely.
So it was very challenging. So I get the entrepreneur piece of it. And I have lots of friends. I have people, in your industry, not roofing, but in the building space. And friends who are cops and friends who are restaurant owners and just people who are out there doing the thing every day and feel very much alone. And we all feel alone. That's a key. Like no one is stepping out and feeling like everybody understands what's going on in their own head. That's one of my favorite quotes is, you live most of your life in your own head. Might as well make it a nice place to live.
I love that.
We got to be a little nicer to ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And step out and lean on others and put yourself out there a little bit. Go to get involved with networking groups, entrepreneur groups. I'm an EO. There's a lot of different, places out there where you can start to really connect with others like-minded. You'll find really quickly that there's a lot more people that can relate to you, right? What's so funny is I get into this group, right? And everyone in this group, everyone in there is very successful, all different types of businesses. And now we've gotten, they're like my closest friends.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, I'm texting him as we're like talking about this new product my buddy's launching and all this. It's super cool. We get in this room and I'm looking around this room and I'm having this feeling like, man, I got a pretty good business. Like I've been pretty successful. I'm pretty proud of what we've been able to accomplish and grateful and blessed with it. And I get in this room, I'm like, man, imposter syndrome is real. Like, who are these people? Like, I don't even belong to be here. And then you get in these deep, intimate conversations and you find out that there's someone in their room doing $100 million company and they feel the same way. You're like, what? What? You're not an imposter. I'm the imposter. Like, wait a minute. No, it doesn't work that way. Like, we all have these same sentiments,
Yeah, I joined the speaker mastermind. I also joined the community, and because with other speakers and other people in this space, and then I find there are people who are so much better at this than me, and tonning it and charging more and on bigger stages and stuff. So I'm like, wow, how did I become like? I suck at like this. I'm super suck. I'm a failure all over again. And then in my head, I'm like, wait, Nina, you're on the U.S. team, won an Emmy Award for Best Newscaster in the Southeast. You made millions of dollars in a tech IPO. You're just trying something new. Like, stop. But I do it. Right. I'm like, I'll wake up and go, man, I suck at this. And I forget that I've done anything in the past. I have to remind myself I've had a big life and raised kids. But we all do that. There's people will look at me and assume that it's all pretty and wonderful and put together. And most days I'm going, okay, what am I sucking at today that I need to be working on?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we spend so much time, you're probably familiar with the gap and the gain, right? We spend so much time in the gap. We don't look back and appreciate with gratitude of where we've come from. We're always focused on what we don't have or what, Joe Jones down the street has or what this person has, or that person has in the group. It's like,
comparison.
We're grateful.
Yeah.
What do you say? Comparison is the thief of joy, right?
Joy. Yeah.
Absolutely.
But I'll do it. I'm like, so and so just got this new car, did the new thing, and we do that comparison game, and then it's super unhealthy for us. Yeah.
Yep. And I'm working my way towards this like social media cleanse too. Like I already took like most of them off my phone, and I'm like working. Problem is, like in a space like us, like
you got to do
part
it.
of my business, I have to be on there. I'm creating content. We're literally creating content right now, and it's like, right now, I have to do these things, but I'm like, don't get on and don't scroll and don't look at others. Just put good stuff out there, and that's so hard to do, right?
Here's where I am with it, and I'm pretty good about it, and I've raised my kids this way, and they're pretty good about it too. There's always somebody behind you who wishes they were where you are right now. Like you said, you're how many years into this podcast?
Oh, like 6, 7 years. I
Yeah,
don't know. I
somebody's
forgot.
just
I
starting
lost
one.
track a couple years
Yeah.
ago.
Somebody's just starting one wishing they were you. Like somebody's behind you in this journey, and then someone's out ahead of you. There's the Joe Rogans of the world, been at this forever, you know. So there's going to
Yeah.
be somebody ahead of you and somebody behind you. You just got to get comfortable with where you are in the journey, and you got to remember to enjoy the journey because that's all we got is the journey part.
Love it.
So that somebody's. I always tell my kids, somebody's behind you and somebody's in front of you always, and go be you. Everybody else is taken. That's
Yeah.
my favorite quote. I told them that when they were little and getting on the bus in elementary school, and when they went off to college, "Go be you. Everybody else is taken." And then now when
I
they'll
love that.
call, yeah, my daughter sent me this. Okay, she's a beautiful girl. She works in AI and she's in New York. And she sent me a picture of herself on the subway this morning. I wish I had my phone near me. I'd show it to you. And she's on the subway headed to her office, and she's dressed all, New York, black and white, cute, like they all do. And her cap that she has on says, "I don't work here." And I was like,
Love it.
and that's so her,
Yeah.
like she's dressed to the nines, like, but she has on a black base Friday. She has on a black baseball cap, and it just says, "I don't work here." And she's on the subway, and she said people were like laughing and stuff. That's her.
I
And,
love
and,
that.
and she has gotten, it's taken a long time for her to get comfortable with who she is too. There's lots of people way ahead of her in New York, obviously, but she's been there 3 years. She remembers. I have to remind her, like, remember when you first got there and didn't even know how to ride the subway?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, where do you fit in? So we all have those like subway moments in our lives, I'll call it. Now that she just did that this morning, where you can look around and go, "Oh, this is right where I fit in, and this is exactly who I am," and it's
Yeah.
okay. I don't have to be everything to everybody. I don't have to be everybody's cup of tea.
I love that. And it's interesting because you've already know, you must have been, you must have heard the show before, because I always end the show with each guest and I kind of put you on the spot. And this has been a show full of golden nuggets. You've shared some amazing things. And as we're trying to land the plane here, generally what I'm going to do is put the guest on the spot. And I'm going to do that again because you've given us so many golden nuggets, but I'm going to challenge you to dig deep and find one more golden nugget that's like that one piece of advice, that one thing that you want to leave our audience with.
Yeah, and I've said it earlier, but I'm going to dig back into it because I truly believe it. A bad year doesn't make a bad life. If you're in the middle of something bad right now, it's okay to not be okay, but it's not okay to stay that way, and it's up to you to move forward. Only you can do that.
I love that.
My favorite quote's by Emerson. I'll leave you with that. And by Emerson, and it's, "What lies behind us and what lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us." I wear it on my wrist.
Love that.
So I'll leave you with that quote. What lies behind us and what lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us.
That's amazing. Amazing. All right, Nina. So, for those that are there's a lot of people in my space, like we do conferences. I do conferences where all these things. So speaker looking for to connect with you. What's the best way to do that?
Oh, I'd love to come speak at some of your conferences. I like this crowd. I just got into this crowd last year, and just so fun.
Be careful.
You
Roofing.
people are
You
fun.
get into our industry. It's it's
The
a
whole
lifestyle, man. It'll catch you. It'll capture you. And you can't get out.
Yeah, that whole construction world. I maybe stayed too late at some of the events before I had to speak, but it was a whole lot of fun. Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn. I think that's the best way to find me for speaking. Nina Sossamon-Pogue on LinkedIn. You can also, if you just want to follow me on social, I'm on Instagram, and I do daily inspiration. I say inspiration and motivation, they're kind of like a shower. You can't just do them once. You got to keep coming back.
Yeah.
So I do some daily inspiration, motivation there. I think I'm funny. I throw some funny stuff on there. And so Instagram's probably a good spot. And then I have a young team that just came on board that is forcing me to do TikTok, and who knows what that's going to look like. You can go on there and watch me make a fool out of myself and fail. That'll be great.
Love
Yeah,
it.
do that.
There we
Yeah.
go. There we go.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Love
those
it.
are the
Hey,
places to find me.
Nina, it's been so fun hanging out with you. Thank you so much for joining me. And for those of you who are listening, if you're driving around, if you're watching on the YouTube, make sure to like, subscribe, throw a comment in there. Make sure to leave us a review. Anything like that truly helps us grow the show. And we truly are appreciative of the time that you've taken to invest in us, to listen to us, to let us share some of our story. And we hope that you got something out of it today. Thank you, everybody. Thank you again, Nina, for joining me. Take care. God bless.